Good evening, and welcome to this week in review. Tonight's stories include ACW and Altergale host a Christmas party, highlights from the awards night, highlights from the AJ Matthews Christmas concert, interview with our MHA Kelvin Parsons. These stories plus community events, the BBS Playbill, Off the Rack, and more coming up after this.
As you visit your family and friends this holiday season, keep in mind a designated driver. Please don't drink and drive.
On Saturday, December the 16th, the ACW and the Altergale hosted their annual Christmas party for the residents of the Calder Healthcare Center. Family and friends gathered in the main lobby of the hospital for the festivities. Joe Kosser, Roy LaFosse, Bill Cloger, and Jeff Quilty played music, including some Christmas carols. We noticed that the volunteers were on hand to help out. The mummers showed up and danced a few jigs. Of course, what would a Christmas party be without a visit from Santa Claus? He had a sack full of gifts for the residents. The Family Resident Council held a ticket draw for some crochet items. Both winners were daughters of Mrs. Kendall from Ramya. Some members of the ACW and Altergale took advantage of the music and had a dance. The ladies also served a wonderful lunch. As per tradition, the ladies of the ACW and Altergale also visited the Southwest Seniors Complex. The Lions Club held a pub night on Monday, December the 18th for the residents of the Southwest Seniors Complex. Here are some highlights. Thanks to Roger Ann for the video. On Monday, December the 18th, the St. John's Central High School held their annual awards night. Parents and teachers gathered to honor the students for their accomplishment during the last school year. Dana Pink, president of the Student Council, was MC for the evening. Reverend Abbott was on hand for the invocation. Mayor Ann brought greetings from the town. Ann Brown congratulated the students and teachers on their hard work and achievements. Mr. Linehan presented the principal's report. Mrs. Doris Pink spoke about her role as acting principal and to say that she was happy to be going back into the classroom. All students received their diplomas and some received perfect attendance. There were many awards given out, including the Governor General's Award that was presented to Denise Thatcher. The $500 Calder Scholarship was awarded to Misty Piercy. The top academic students were presented with trophies and will have their names engraved on a plaque. Mr. Corwin Dunford publicly thanked the community for all their help and support during his illness last year. The audience responded with a standing ovation. The evening concluded with the Sea Cadet Band playing Ode to Newfoundland. The awards night will be shown in its entirety at a later date. On Monday, December the 18th, our MHA, the Honorable Calvin Parsons, stopped by for an interview and his annual Christmas greeting. We have with us in our studio today our MHA Calvin Parsons. Welcome, Mr. Parsons.
Good to be here. Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Same to you. It's nice to have you again. Let's talk about the fish plant. That's always first and foremost. Any updates, any news?
There's nothing ongoing at this time other than discussions. We're awaiting the 2001 management plan. The surveys are ongoing now for the various species, i.e. crab and shrimp. That'll be taken and compiled by the scientists in Ottawa, and they'll come forth with a management plan for next year. And based upon that management plan, we either will or will not be in the running, of course, to get some kind of resource. Bill Matthews has had ongoing discussions, of course, with myself and with Mayor Alistair Hann. We'll be following up on these statistics to see where we are and where we fit in the plan, if at all.
Okay. Now, the FFAW are going to be dropping by on Wednesday, I believe, to speak to their union. Have you been in contact with them to see if you can get them a little shove, maybe?
Yes, there's two sides to the story, and it's a very complex problem. It's not all one way or all the other way. I've had discussions with Mayor Hann. Councillor Reid has been involved. I have had extensive discussions as recently as this past Friday for 2.5 hours with Earl McCurdy and Red Anstey to see where the FFAW were coming from. I understand they're going to be here on Wednesday morning to meet with their membership. They have to do an election of officers, plus give them an update on where they stand vis-a-vis the plant. Again, it's complex. The sides at this time are certainly far apart, albeit we may not get everything that one side wants or the other wants. I think we all have to compromise here, and it's better to start, albeit if it means starting small, and keep the golden prize in view than it is not to get anywhere. So I think it's compromise required on both sides. And I think both sides, despite having pros and cons, should tell it like it is to the public and let the public make up their minds as to where we're going. We can't have people living on expectations only, and it's not fair of people to raise expectations and then have them drop. So if the plant operators intend and are serious about wanting to operate, they should tell the people and how they propose to do it. And likewise the unions. If the unions seriously back this community as a town and want to see that it does survive and continue to exist, they've got to shoot straight and tell it like it is. And then once both sides get their unionism and their processing views put one side, let's work together for the betterment of the town.
Okay. Is there any hint of any increase or anything in the crab quotas, do you know?
The information I had, and this is certainly not reliable, any official sources, is that the statistics to date does not look like there will be any crab increase in the crab quotas. But that's not to say that there won't be any increase in any other resource quotas, such as shrimp allocations.
Yeah. A lot of our viewers are probably going to find that a bit disturbing because we do have fishermen that are on crab boats, and they're reporting that a crab pot can hold probably 75 to 80 pounds of crab, and they're bringing in double, triple that. So they're saying that there's lots of it out there. So we're...
Yeah, and I've been told those stories before, particularly when it came to outside the 200-mile
Yes.
limit. And I made the argument before, I don't think what applies to the inshore ought to necessarily apply to the offshore. But DFO, in their wisdom or lack of it, don't see it that way, and they look at the overall stock, and they felt last year that they did not justify any increase. In fact, that they should be decreased, and they did just that.
Okay. Now on to our new school. Any updates there?
I spoke with Andy Butt as recently as this morning, in fact, and the contractor has been selected to demolish the A.J. Matthews Elementary. There were some delays originally. They had thought they'd get started around the 1st of December, but there were some title problems and legal problems with the land that had to be ironed out first. That's been done now and resolved, and he expects that the contractor will be in here early in the new year to commence the demolition. The design of the school is ongoing. In fact, they can't finalize, the architects can't finalize the design until the actual school is out of it, because there's some site work that they had to put into the design, and they want to make sure that the old school is gone before they finalize those few details. But everything is moving as planned and as scheduled.
There was rumors around town that there was a, I'll say, squabble between the church and the school board, because originally the church owned the school, the land, whatever. Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, I understood there was such a rumor, but I've confirmed with Mr. Butt that it's totally unfounded.
Okay.
The parish
Good.
and the diocese were quite pleased to donate the land to the school board, and the school board are quite appreciative of the donation, and there's absolutely nothing amiss, and everybody's quite contented with how things are unfolding.
So everything is on par and everything is on schedule.
Most definitely.
Marvelous. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, it's nice to say, nice to be here. I tried to keep a schedule of one visit per month for just clinics alone, besides any other visits that we might do. And so far, I've been able to keep to the schedule. The House of Assembly closed on Thursday past, so my first stop for work was Burgeo, and I'm going to be here today, and I have some meetings tonight and tomorrow as well. And I'm going to be presenting the Governor General's Award tonight at the school here.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing you then.
Good to be here. Residents of Burgeo, I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you and your loved ones a very Merry Christmas. Despite frustrating and difficult times, we still have blessings to be thankful for. As my late father always said, as long as we're on the green side of the sod, there's still room and reason to be hopeful. Christmas is a time to spend with family and friends, to celebrate and to relax. Christmas is also a time to remember the birth of Christ and give thanks to God for our health and happiness. Enjoy this time with your families. Be secure and be safe. I honor the privilege of representing you and look forward to continued hard work with yourselves and your community leaders in the year 2001. Again, Merry Christmas and a very happy and prosperous New Year. Thank you.
On Tuesday of this week, Mr. Paul Dix was in Burgeo. Mr. Dix is seeking the position of leader of the Liberal Party of Newfoundland and Labrador. Approximately 20 people attended the meeting. Mr. Lloyd Walters welcomed everyone and spoke a little bit about why he was supporting Mr. Dix. There were several housekeeping items to be taken care of before Mr. Dix spoke. Wayne Borden asked if anyone was interested in becoming a delegate to represent Mr. Dix in the upcoming leadership convention. Bob Mercer spoke on the role and responsibilities of the delegates and passed out applications to everyone present. Mr. Dix told the group about his Burgeo connections and how delegates could get elected. The floor was then open for a question and answer period. Of course, the first question on everyone's mind was the fish plant.
Let me say, I think the most important thing we can do, from what I hear from people in Burgeo in the next while, is find a way to get the fish plant open again. You mentioned something else, that, well, first of all, the crab boat, if you could get that back, that would certainly help. From what I understand, the shrimp stocks off the coast of the province are in pretty good shape. So if we can get an additional allocation of shrimp, rather than give it to PEI, I think the federal government should be allocating it to communities in Newfoundland and Labrador which really need it the most. And Burgeo would certainly be in that category. I think among all the areas that were most affected by the ground fishery closure, Virgil is probably the one that's probably still the most affected, that hasn't gotten any other level of economic activity. I think if the federal government has any sense of fairness, it should look to resuscitate areas that really need it the most. And that's something that, as a province, we can put forward as a position on behalf of Virgil. Now, there are others. I mean, Passy is pretty hard hit as well. We need to try to find ways to revitalize several of the communities which haven't come back and don't have active fish plants right now. But the other thing that you mentioned to me earlier was the sea urchin problem. One thing that we really need to do is look at underutilized species. And if it is the case, as you mentioned, that the province has a prohibition against issuing new licenses, but you have a resource, such as sea urchins, that you can start to harvest and process, I don't see any reason in the world that we wouldn't give the plant here a license to harvest sea urchins. I think part of what we have to do is see if there are other species, underutilized species, that we could license and find quotas for. But I guess what I'd like to do is ask you what you think the provincial government should be doing, and or the federal government, and or the union, to reopen the plant, and what role we can play. Because as you know, the quotas are set by the federal government. They're given to fishing fleets, and we have control over the processing to some extent. We issue licenses. And there is a precedent to give new licenses because we expanded the number of crab processing licenses in the province back in 96, 97. Does anybody have any suggestions that we could be looking at to help get the plant up and operating?
I'm going to go on a more general provincial line of questioning. Being as you're going for Premier, you would be Premier Newfoundland, not Premier Virgil. Virgil, of course, with it. But in my opinion, we've got oil and gas, we've got Boise's Bay, and we've got the Lower Churchill. Yes, they're great things. And you know as well as I do that they're going to come on stream. Eventually, they will come on stream. Global and rich people, the economy will demand that those three things I named there will come on stream. And they will benefit Newfoundland. Make no mistake about it. But, in my opinion, there is something in Newfoundland which I would like to see the next Premier do. And that is, I have never heard said the Grand Banks of Canada. I've always heard the Grand Banks of Newfoundland. And I would like to see our next Premier go nose to nose with Ottawa in claiming full jurisdiction out to the nose and the tail, and Newfoundland would share that jurisdiction. I'd like to know what your position will be on that.
Well, I'll tell you frankly that one thing I've said in my speeches, which I've circulated to delegates, is that we need a joint management board for the fishery with the federal government. And I'll make a point to pick up on something you said. The federal Supreme Court decided that the oil and gas beneath the ocean bed belonged to the federal government. And in 1988, the federal government signed an agreement with the province of Newfoundland and Labrador that we'd have a joint management board called the CNOPB. So all the regulations regarding oil and gas, the exploration licenses, the method of production, Hibernia with fixed platform, Terra Nova with floating platform, we have a committee that we've set up jointly with the federal government. And the chairperson on that is a native Newfoundlander. And I, as provincial minister, have say. I can veto certain things. So the federal government has given and shared with the province jurisdiction over all the oil and gas that lies below the ocean seabed out to the 200-mile limit. But yet, the fish which float above it, we have absolutely no say in it. And traditionally, the fishery has certainly been a resource of much greater value and importance to the province. So it's inconsistent for the federal government to say we'll share jurisdiction over the oil and gas beneath the seabed, but we're not going to give you a say in managing the fish that swim above it. So I agree with you completely, but I don't think it's ever been put that way federally. Because I don't think, frankly, that the way the federal government regards the fishery, that they see it as a national asset, let alone an asset of this province. It's something that traditionally has been traded off. Our fishery resources are given to foreign nations so they can sell industrial things produced, Bombardier rail cars in Quebec, or prairie wheat, or pick another commodity. But it's not seen as a national resource that should be used to the benefit of the country. But I think beyond that, we have a special case to make based on adjacency and traditional reliance. That is our resource, and it should belong to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, even more so than the oil and gas. So I couldn't agree with you more, and I think we have to put it that forcefully, and we have to take up the fight again to get a joint management board with them.
There were many other questions including sea urchins, seal hunt, food fishery, gun control regulations, health care, gas and oil prices. One of the most favorable answers was towards the sea urchins, and this comment.
I agree completely. Government policy, that policy was not brought in to prevent people processing new species or unutilized species. It was brought in to prevent any new license being issued for species that were overexploited and where we had too many licenses. But there's no reason that if you have an opportunity to process sea urchins here, people are prepared to catch them, there's no reason you shouldn't have that license. And if that policy prevents it, I would change it or make an exception. I mean, that's what you say is defies any logic. It shouldn't be happening. And if someone's prepared to do it, we shouldn't be letting the general government policy stand in the way of issuing the licenses for sea urchins.
And what were you proving that you're sea urchin out there? You've got a fisherman that's taking $2 delivery and the Dutch is prepared to go get it. That's all basically. I mean, you obviously running some of the problems.
As I mentioned to you, there's a plant on Bell Island that does them. I don't know when their license started, but in that type of industry, we've been trying to encourage in the fishery. Have you taken up with the Department of Fisheries? Have you taken up at a higher level? They just won't issue it. Well, I disagree with that policy, frankly. I think it makes no sense.
What would you be talking about in terms of that?
Ballpark figure.
I can't believe
There used to
they
be
take that position.
one fisherman, 2 divers, could by 25 by 25 workers in the process.
So how long a big term of employment are you talking about?
About 6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months? Really? See, that's what we're looking
You know, I can't believe that the department would be that. Is there anything more to it? Other than just they say there's a ban on a new processing license? Is that as simple as that?
Well, the ban is one thing, but not allowing 2 licenses in one place. In other words, there's a primary processing license in Virgin, and there's not going to be 2.
But on the other hand, if it's a limited license for one species and the other plant owner is not interested in doing it, I think that's the wrong policy.
I personally think it's stupid.
I can tell you frankly, with Line Premier, I'll change that. That makes no sense.
The meeting concluded with these comments from Mr. Dec.
Yes, well, first of all, it's good to be in Burgeo. As I say, my roots in the province really started in Burgeo with my family that came here originally. And going around the province, you really get a better sense of how things are in different areas. And the problems in Burgeo are not always similar to those I find in other parts of the province. But then again, you do see similarities. People are concerned about healthcare and education and the cost of post-secondary education. So I guess in just coming to, just concluding what we were talking about, to my way of thinking, the most important choice going to be made in Newfoundland and Labrador in the near future is who is going to be the premier of our province. It's going to come down to very few people to make that selection, and that's going to be the individuals who attend the Liberal Leadership Convention. That's one of the reasons I'm here, to solicit people and to find people who'd like to be delegates. You have to be a member of the Liberal Party and you have to be nominated by some other Liberals, and as well you have to be prepared to have submit your name to St. John's on January 4th. So if you want to help with the campaign, please let us know. The information is at the station. You can find out how to get in contact with us, and we'd appreciate your support in my candidacy. And hopefully this will be a successful campaign. At the end of it, I'll be able to do something about problems in the province and maybe help with some issues here in Burgeo as well. Thank you.
On Wednesday of this week, Mr. Earl McCurdy, along with other top union officials, were in town for a union meeting. We got an opportunity to speak with Mr. McCurdy.
Welcome to Burgeo again, Mr. McCurdy.
Thank you.
What was the main topic of your union meeting today?
Well, the purpose of the meeting was to elect a union committee on behalf of the plant workers to, promote highlight the issue of the circumstances of the community, the need to get work in the plant, to go meet with the company and find out if they have plans, and if so, what they are, and to try and get the ball rolling because of the obviously the desperate situation here. And so that was really the main purpose, and of course, naturally, the future of the community, the history of what happened with the crab quotas last year, and so on. All those things came out. But there are things that can happen to put work on the floor of the plant in Burgeo, and we want to explore them with the company because it's just not. We're not prepared to sit back and just let the community die. The people here aren't, and we're not as the union representatives. Burgio's meant a lot to our union for many, many years. And we certainly do. We made that very clear, everything we can to try and find a solution to the problems here.
Okay, I understand that you also had a union executive today at voting, so would you care to inform us about who is on the new executive and the committee?
Yeah, well, there's a new committee elected, and Owen Morrison is the chairperson of that committee, and they have several other members elected as well. And they'll be working very closely with us. We made a commitment to try and get a meeting as soon as possible with ourselves and the committee and the company to really pursue what's going on. We want, for example, there were quotas attached to Burgio plant, redfish quotas and so on. Now they obviously went downhill a lot with the cutbacks in the 90s in quotas, but there's still some quota that was originally Burgio's quota. There's the issue of the inshore fish around here, which we believe could be potential jobs. There's issues related to the number of jobs in the meal plant. There's a whole host of issues that we want to sit down with the company and find out exactly what their intentions are and what their plans are. Because just sitting back and waiting for a miracle to happen a miracle is not going to happen. People have to be aggressive and go forward and try and seek solutions. So there's a very, there's a good turnout for the meeting, and clearly a very strong will on the people, the plant workers of Burgio, to fight for the survival of their community. And I was very encouraged by that, to see that despite the hard times, that the willpower, that's the trademark of Burgio, that has not died out, and we're certainly prepared to assist in every way we can. I don't think that it makes any sense. We're not interested in just in bickering with other people. Unfortunately, we can't allocate fish. The Minister of Fisheries and Oceans makes that decision. There's comments made that somehow the union, apparently some people in town have the belief that the union opposed getting quotas of something or other. Absolutely not the case. I told them point blank at the meeting that we have never written a letter, never made a phone call, and never said one word to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans opposing any allocation of any fish whatsoever to Burgio. What we did last year, when the bad news came out about the scientific advice of crab, we leveled with people and told them that. I sat for 2 hours in a meeting where politicians weren't even mentioning it. And I don't believe there's any future in misleading people or telling them what you think they want to hear. You've got to deal with the truth and with the facts. And the facts at that time was there was this devastating news about the scientific advice for crab, which was a real blow to plans we'd worked for years at to try and ensure a source of work for people in Burgio.
Okay, now what has the FFAW union done, say for example, in the past 3 months to get some quota or get some help for the Burgio plant?
Well, first of all, a lot will depend on what are the overall quotas in various species for the coming year. Right now we don't know. The plan for crab, which was really something that originated with the union, that we came forward with that idea, worked with the local people, went to the company, went to the government, pursued the plan, and developed it. That was based on what we anticipated to be an increase in the amount of crab outside 200 miles. There had been a crab fishery out there for quite some years before the pilot project to land in Burgio, but we were basing on an increased quota, said a portion of the increase, or a big chunk of it, we recommend to be set aside for Burgio. Unfortunately, what happened last year, instead of an increase in quota, we're looking at a decrease, and that really was a serious blow indeed for a lot of people in crab plants all over the province, including Burgio. We made a commitment to continue to work not only on that, but we really believe that local fish is something that really should be done in Burgio. There's fish from Burgio, Ramia, Grey River, Francois, that could be done here. The lump roe, there's a host of things that could be done. That's not on the scale that would suddenly put 300 or 400 people back to work. And quite frankly, I think it's unrealistic for anyone to expect that something out of the blue will create 300 or 400 jobs. I would dearly love to be able to come in here. I can't think of a place I'd rather be able to come in and say we found a source of several hundred jobs. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any such source of jobs in those kind of numbers. I do think there are things could be done on a smaller scale here to provide work in the plant. Issue was raised in the meeting, for example, that only a handful of people working in the meal plant with extremely long hours, when it would make sense to have a reasonable number of hours worked by more people, and we'll certainly work with the local committee to try and convince the company to do that. But I think if we, maybe instead of looking for a magic solution that would solve all the problems overnight, we should start working on bits and pieces that we gradually build on. And I know that's the approach we've taken in other communities, is to, sometimes we've had to start small after the moratorium. Some cases the plants have never gotten back open. Some they've started and failed, and others they've done quite well. They started small and gradually built up, and that's what we hope can happen here, and we'll certainly do everything we can to make that happen. At the end of the day, it's a decision of the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans that's critical.
Yes, a lot of people would probably agree, but a lot of people in our town also would say that even though the union seemingly doesn't have the power to increase quotas, you do have the power to put the pressure on to say, look, we are hurting in Burgeo, Ramia and Galtos, and you can, as a union, put pressure on. And if pressure is put on by the union, in lots of cases, the Minister of Fisheries or whoever you're dealing with will say, look, those guys are putting the pressure on. This is a political thing. We will do this to make us look good. How do you respond to accusations or comments like that?
Well, first of all, yes, we can put pressure on. That's what we do. But at the end of the day, we don't make the decision. For example, the shrimp. If we had the power to determine these outcomes, PEI wouldn't have got that shrimp last summer. But we don't. We couldn't have been stronger in our recommendation, and the minister went completely 100% against us. That's the same Mr. Dhaliwal who went on the fisheries broadcast in response to a question on a phone-in show from a man from Ramia and said that as far as he's concerned, that the companies that run in the fish business should be free to decide which plants they operate where they land the fish, and to make the most money. That's his personal point of view as minister. So yes, there are things we can do. I don't think the people in Burgeo would have supported 10 years ago us recommending publicly that fish be taken from them that was always theirs and given to somebody else. And likewise, we can't go recommend that something that somebody else always had be taken from them. The crab proposal was based on what we felt would be an increase in quota. We worked extremely hard to make that a reality, and for a short time frame it was through exploratory fishery until the bombshell hit. There's plants that have been in the crab business for 30 years, had 100 people and more, didn't get any work this year because there just simply was that major quota cut. So we will continue to do everything we can. I'm not going to come into Burgeo one day and say, well, we got a solution, we'll take work away from some other community tomorrow and run around saying different things in different communities. That's not how we operate. We'll do whatever we can to help find a solution for the community. And by the way, I think the members have to stand up and be counted too. The political members from the district, exactly where they stand. I mean, it's a Liberal government that issues the quota, and people should remember that.
At a recent meeting in November, our mayor felt that it was time that the FFAW go out on a limb for Burgeo, since in the early 70s the union was very strong here in Burgeo, and a lot of residents feel that the union hasn't been doing very much, hasn't been very vocal, and hasn't been putting enough pressure on the powers that be to get something here in Burgeo. The company is also feels that it is the top officials that are probably not doing as much as they could to get something here for Burgeo. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, the company were the ones who came in. Sea Freeze came into this town and took over the plant from National Sea, and we didn't support that. We didn't think it was in the interest of the town at the time, you may recall, and we opposed that. However, they ended up getting the plant anyway, and there was an agreement that they were supposed to land a certain portion of their groundfish quotas in Burgeo, which they did not do. They took them elsewhere, and they ended up eventually in Port of Basque, where they were transferred to smaller inshore boats so the company could leverage more fish from those boats, not for Burgeo, but for Port of Basque, even though those quotas had been earned by the sweat of the brow of the people, the trawlermen and the plant workers in Burgeo. So the company really has the responsibility of providing work. In the case of FPI, when they had communities where they no longer had an operating plan, at least they had the decency to step aside. The only amount of work, other than half a dozen jobs in the meal plant and minor maintenance jobs, the only production work that's happened in Burgeo since 1992 has been as a direct result of the efforts of the union. We were the ones who identified the opportunity on offshore crab, coming out of an increased, what appeared to be an increased quota. We had meeting after meeting. The company went to one meeting, then for a long time we were on our own. And it was only when it appeared it was going to become a reality that they showed an interest in it. And that's the only work that's been on the floor of the plant, was directly as a result of the work of our union. Unfortunately, we have a really serious problem in this province. There's not nearly enough resource for the amount of people that have traditionally depended on it for a living. And there's nothing that we can do about that. And as regards the mayor, I really don't understand the value of him simply getting out of the meeting and attacking the union. We don't have the power to fix all those problems. If we did, why would PEI get the shrimp when we were so strongly opposed? You know, it just doesn't stand to reason. We will continue to do, as we have done in the past, advocate the interests of Burgeo with the Government of Canada. But ultimately, it's the company that has the key to the plant, not the union. They have decided they want it open. For example, I would fully support having the inshore fish processed in that plant. I think that's what the company should do. I would also support having the company land the traditional share of the redfish and other quotas that they always land here. I think that's what they should do. The company, however, is one who controls that. And I think that the people would do well to remember that, and that they do so under directions of the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. So I think I understand the frustration when things are as bleak as they are in this town. So I know, when people get up, they have a right to get up in a meeting and express their point of view. I think the mayor has a responsibility to provide leadership. And I guess my offense primarily was to go into a meeting when the politicians were skirting around these drastic quota cuts and the people didn't even know about it. So I finally said, look, I can't sit there, make a trip into Burgeo. What would they think of me if I came in and left again without even telling them the truth? So I told them, because nobody else, the people who should have told them, with the responsibility for managing their resources, namely the Government of Canada, when they refused to do it and twiddle their thumbs, finally I said, look, there's one thing you people have to, I have to let you know, because it's common knowledge. In government circles, I've become aware of it several days before that meeting in Burgeo last March. And virtually everybody in the room, other than the local people, were aware of it. The mayor was aware of it. I filled him in on it. In fact, he was at a conference 2 weeks earlier in St. John's where it came out publicly. So it was not well known here. But what I did was level with the people and tell them the facts, even though they were very grim facts. And I took no joy in doing it. I still believe that's preferable to trying to bamboozle them or skate around direct questions. The fact was, when those quota cuts came in crab, that was a very serious blow to what looked like a very promising opportunity for work in Burgeo, and an opportunity that came through the hard work of our union, and in particular Reg Anstey, who worked endlessly on, and also had support from some people in government such as Max Short and others, but at the end of the day the quota cuts were a serious blow to that.
Now, you stated earlier that with this new committee, you as the FFAW will be working with them to do everything in your power to meet with the company and get some work probably in the plant. But it seems to me that is a vicious cycle. The company says the union can help, but the union says the company can help. When you meet together, will you try to get over that hurdle and stop this circle of he says, she says, that type of thing, and try to get on with the business of trying to get something for Burgeo?
Absolutely, but and we're very different. There's nothing personal between me and Mr. Barry. We had our differences a number of years ago, but that's past us. I would be delighted if he could develop a plan to operate the plant, but only he can make that decision. I can't set up shop and start buying inshore fish in the plant in Burgeo. I don't have the license. Falcon Seafoods has a license. The principals of that company have to make that decision. And I think if they don't have a plan, they should at least step aside and see if we can find somebody who will be willing to operate. Obviously, if they're willing to, that's great. So yes, of course, we're prepared to adopt them. The crab business in Newfoundland, every pound of crab the quotas are allocated to individual harvesters who then go out and make a deal with companies. The companies here are big players, and the three of them combined buy a lot of crab. I venture to say about half the crab in Newfoundland. If they put even 5% of their production into Burgeo, for example, it would make a major difference. They have the right to do that, the power to do it. I understand that so far they have decided not to, and they have their reasons for that, including, I suppose, the distances involved, all whatever reasons they have. But We can't make that decision, only the company can. Naturally, we're willing to work with them to try and pursue real opportunities. I think some of the members here today put their finger on the real opportunities, which is the local fish, the redfish that used to belong to Virgio, and still should, and try and build from there. Not some pie in the sky. I mean, we tried Argentines, we tried Cape, there's a whole host of ideas popped up, but they weren't based on, I mean, you got to have some real allocation to start with, and we're prepared to cooperate with the company and pursue that. But I agree with you. I don't think it was constructive for the mayor and the company to come to a public meeting and say the fault is ours. It's an easy way out of a meeting to blame it on somebody else, but the fact is, we don't allocate fish, and we don't have the key to the plant, and we don't have the license to operate the plant. DFO allocates fish, and Falcon Seafoods has the key to the plant, and the only ones who have the opportunity and the right to open it and do business.
Okay, now there seems to be some question about this 105-foot, maybe 6-foot refrigerated seawater boat that's going to be built and landing crab in Bonavista. Now, a lot of residents in town feel that that's a little bit unfair. Virgil's not asking for a lot. They only want to have a little bit to open up their plant, along with the other things that you mentioned and Mr. Barry mentioned. It seems to be that greed is playing a factor in some of how the crab is being landed and whatever. How would you answer that?
Well, I'm not sure who it is that's being greedy. In the case of that particular license, they've had crab since 1995. The only difference is that up till now, they've leased a vessel that belonged to somebody else. This year, for the first time, they'll have their own vessel. As far as I know, their quotas will be no different. Well, nobody knows what the quotas will be for 2001. People in Bonavista, I don't think they're greedy people. As a matter of fact, there's 120 plant workers in Bonavista who've been working in crab plants for years, some of them going back to the 70s who didn't get work this year. So that's what I mean when I say the solution to Virgio's problem is not to go and simply take fish from somewhere else and give them and transfer the problem there. It's to identify what can be done, what's possible to start with and to build on. If there's an increase in quota, then I think that Virgio, I would sincerely hope that some of that fish could go to Virgio. That's not contrary to what some people are saying. It's not a union boat. The quota is not held by the union. It's a co-op of offshore trawlermen that has a license, and this year had an allocation of approximately 460 tons of fish. And in spite of that going into Bonavista, they still had a large number of people who had no work at all. So I understand why someone would pinpoint that solution. It's an easy one for the mayor to latch on to because he doesn't have to answer to people in Bonavista or anywhere else. Normally, new opportunities in a fishery come about from increased quotas, and it's much more difficult to solve problems when you're in a situation of declining quotas. And that's just a grim reality that neither I can change, nor the mayor, nor the company, nor anybody else.
Okay, before we go, will you, as the FFAW president, be putting pressure on the government to do something for Virgio, and will you put it in writing for our local?
Of course we will, and you know, I don't want people to be misled and think that suddenly solves the problem, because see, there's not 1 pound of resource that our union stopped from coming into this plant, not one. I don't know what's being said or what motivation is that the company or the mayor or others are saying that somehow the problem is involved with the union. There's plant Twillingate, which has 24 million pounds of raw material trucked out the road annually. 24 million pounds. And that was bought by the same people who own this plant here, the Falcon Group, plus 3 other companies. They jointly bought up the Twillingate plant with the intention of keeping it closed. That's the kind of circumstances you're dealing with. So even though there's a tremendous amount of crab at their doorstep, landed at the wharf in Twillingate, it goes out the road for processing elsewhere because the companies had no plan for Twillingate from day one but to close it. So it's a tough situation out there. Port Union used to have 1,000 workers. It's down to about, it was closed for 8 years. It's now open in shrimp business with about 170 workers. We're glad to get that many jobs. They had to build small compared to what they used to be, and they hope to build up. In Virgio, I think a good start right off the bat will be to get the inshore fish and get back those ground fish quotas, to have something to start with and to try and build on. That's what we're going to, where we're going to put our emphasis with the company. Obviously, if any other opportunities come along, that's great. But for the company to say, take away fish from somebody else for Virgio, that's the easy thing for them to say, but they have the power to do that. they don't need our support, they don't need the government support. All those three powerful companies making up the Falcon Group have to do is say, we'll take a portion of the fish that the crab we're already buying, we have a crab license now, and we'll ship a certain percentage of that into Virgil for processing. It doesn't require any government approval, any blessing or otherwise from the union. All it requires is their decision to do it. That's their choice, and they've chosen not to do it.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, I think that probably covers it. Thank you.
And thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Bye.
During the union meeting, a new local union executive was voted into office. Mr. Owen Marsden is the new chairperson, along with Robert Sims, Jim Tucker, and Harvey Billard. The new executive officers will be looking for individuals to fill other positions on the executive board at a later date. The A.J. Matthews Elementary School held their annual Christmas concert on Wednesday of this week. Before the concert started, Mrs. Binwall gave instructions in the event that the power went out, since it was stormy outside. This was the first time the A.J. Matthews Elementary School put on a performance in their new home. Each grade did either recitals or short plays, and everyone sang some Christmas songs. Everyone agreed that Mr. Vetcher's class stole the show with their performance of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the Newfoundland version. Here's a look.
And look at the crowd here. Nothing else better for them to do, I don't suppose. And who's that cock off down there? That's that Scott Lenahan. He just got back from university with his master's degree. Leela Fox. I suppose he just got back from chasing moose. If I didn't know better, I'd say he was growing a pair of antlers. There's something else, I tell ya. There's something else. It turns me stomach. It turns me stomach.
Congratulations to all the students and teachers on a job well done. The concert will be shown in its entirety at a later date. Stay tuned for more of This Week in Review coming up after this. Virgil Broadcasting System employees, along with the Board of Directors and volunteers, would like to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas and a safe and prosperous New Year. The preschool class held their Christmas party on Wednesday of this week. Derek Mercer and Tom Cutler played music and helped the children sing some Christmas songs. But the best part was Santa's visit.
And I'm Jonah. And I'm Jonah.
You're Jonah. And who are you? So let's see, I brought a bag with me today. Do you suppose there's anything in it? What do you think? Did you want to sit on my knee? So what did you want for Christmas?
Ryan.
Oh, bless you. And new Phoenix. Oh. What do you want for Christmas, buddy? Let me see. Who's this for?
Bianca. That's for Bianca.
That is for Bianca. Who's Bianca?
Me.
There you go, here. What did you want for Christmas?
Mom got me a couple of dogs and a hat.
Have you been a good girl? And have you written this letter to Santa? Yeah, well, we'll see what Santa can bring you on Christmas Eve. Ho, ho, ho.
I want to see who does.
Ben.
Santa.
Yes.
I see you on the bed.
Am I on? No, on that one there? Oh, they put my picture everywhere. This is to Megan. Are you Megan? What do you want for Christmas, dear?
I want to see.
Oh,
What do you say, Santa? Oh my goodness.
oh. This is to Emma. Who's Emma? Are you Emma? What? There you go, dear. What do you want for Christmas? Did you want pictures? Did you want to sit on Santa's knee? No, okay. You wait. You sit there when it's your turn. We'll save this one for last.
Who might this be for? This is to teacher. Oh, you better take that one. Teacher gets hers last. Oh, oh, oh. This one says to Ryan. Oh, oh, sit up here, Ryan, and have a... You sit up with Mother, Ryan. There you go. It's a bag full today, I guess it is. This one is to Emily.
Emily, you want to sit up there? Want to get your picture?
You sit up on Santa's lap. Can you make it up here? Up. There we go. Ho, ho, ho. What do you think? Will you say Merry Christmas to everybody? Here you go, dear. What's this one now? Oh, oh. Oh, another one for Mrs. Murphy. Oh. This is for Nicholas. Where is Nicholas? Is that you? You want to sit on Santa's knee or just want the present? Okay. There you go. You been a good boy? Yeah. I can tell. Oh. She's somewhat, isn't she? Oh, back here. Where's Curtis? You want to come and see Santa? Here. Mom, get a picture for you? Oh, oh, Merry Christmas. There you go. You're welcome.
I'll give you that.
This is to Jonah.
That's me.
That's you. Merry Christmas, Jonah.
This is what I wanted.
Oh, I don't see a name on this one. I don't see a name on this one. Oh, there it is, sorry. Santa needs his glasses changed, I think. There's nothing on it.
It's so small, is it?
Okay. Oh, kids got this?
Okay, you wait now. Go outside everybody else.
Well, look at all the stuff. Food. She must have been really good this year. Was she a good teacher this year? Yeah, because there's all sorts of presents for her.
We would like to thank Roger Hand for his video. On Monday of this week, residents may have noticed the B&B Construction Company doing some work on the poles around town. B&B Construction was awarded the contract to put up the cable strand for the BBS new cable rebuild. It takes them approximately 10 minutes to put up the cable from one pole to another. If conditions are favorable, they will be able to complete a kilometer or more of cable strand per day. This part of the BBS ICT project is expected to be finished by the end of January if the weather conditions are good. Now over to Mr. George Reed, President of the BBS, with more information on what this project means for our subscribers.
Good evening. I would like to take this opportunity to explain to you what's taking place in regards to your cable system. In 1982, when we formed the Virgil Broadcasting Company, it was formed with a bandwidth of 200 megahertz. And that 200 megahertz was capable of handling 25 channels. At the present time, we have 32 channels. Over the past years, we have not been able to add any more, of course, because we have reached our capacity. But the area in Burgeo, there are certain areas that has bad TV. And the Mistress area is one, the beach area, and the Arbor area. So an upgrading of the system is long overdue. Of course, we've been on the air now for 18 years. Even though we've maintained the system in good order as best we could, it still needs to be upgraded. Now, 3 years ago, we set up a committee. That committee was chaired by Mrs. Barbara Barter and various other people in the community and representing various groups that's involved in the project. Now, so it's been a long time. It's been 3 years since we've been trying to get this project approved. And one of the aspects of this project was to upgrade our system. The project has been approved, and more will be said about that project as time comes. Now, our commitment to the project, that is Burgeo Broadcasting System, is $25,000. The rest of the money for the project, I'll leave that up to the government people to announce. Now, our new system. Our new system will have a bandwidth of 750 megahertz. It will have capabilities for 300 channels. And as you've seen over the past week or so, a company is already working on upgrading the system. The contract was awarded to B&B Construction of Newfoundland, and they'll start stringing the strand, and the cable will, of course, follow. They hope to have it all finished by January 31st, 2001. Of course, Claude will be changing the drops over to the new system starting February, around February 2001, and he'll be doing that in the troubled areas first. Now, you shouldn't lose any TV reception during the changeover. Both systems will be working side by side. So in other words, the old system will be on, and you'll be receiving, some people will be receiving their signals from the old system, and once he changes, drops over to the new system, then they'll be getting their signals from the new system. So there should not be any downtime. Now, to meet our commitment to the project, that is the $25,000, and to guarantee long-term viability of the system, and of course with commitment to put on more channels, we had to agree to increase the rates for our subscribers. Now, the last rate increase we had was in 1992. At that time, we increased it 32 cents. Now, our new rates, and I'll refer to the chart here. It's scheduled over a 5-year period. Now, here's what we're paying now. The year 2000, this is the basic rate. This is your tax. This is your total rate. Now, starting January 2001, this will be the basic rate. This is the increase, 43 cents. This is their taxes, $261. Total is $20. 2002, $17.83 your basic rate, 44 cents your increase, $267 taxes, $20.50. 2003, basic rate is $18.26, 43 cents for taxes, for the increase, I'm sorry, $274 taxes, $21 your total. 2004, $18.70 basic, 44-cent increase, $281 taxes, $21.51 for total. And 2005, $19.13 is your basic, 43-cent increase, $287 taxes, $22. Now, with that increase, with these increases, I should say, that we will fulfill our commitment to the project. We will also guarantee that the system will have money there to keep itself maintained and, of course, to put on new channels. And I would say in the year 2001, we should be able to put on X number of channels because right now, we haven't determined how many we can put on. That all depends on, of course, the financing. And I would say every year after 2001, there should be new channels added as the company makes a bit of profit. Now, each new channel that we put on will cost BBS approximately $2,000. But I would say at the end of the day, with the capabilities of having 300 channels, you know, you probably will have the best television in the whole of Canada, and probably for as a rate for a cable system, would probably be one of the cheapest. So, Merry Christmas to you all, and a Happy New Year.
Mr. Greg Elliott dropped by our studio on Thursday of this week for his monthly interview. Today in our studio we have with us Mr. Greg Elliott, and he's going to do his year-end report, or actually it's monthly report. It just happens to be at the end of the year. Welcome, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you.
Let's see. Cell phone service. That's an interesting one. I don't think we've dealt with that one before.
Well, we have as a board, the last couple of years, we've been contacting Newtel for two issues. One is the cell phone service, and the other one is actually to get a change in the directory to show Francois and Grey River as part of the Western Newfoundland phone book, because those two communities do a lot of dealing and whatnot in Western Newfoundland, in particular Burgeo, and so we have a lot of contacts here. And luckily this past year, if anybody noticed, the new phone book, Francois and Grey River, is in that, so we kind of got over one little hurdle, and then we said, well, let's push the issue a little bit more. Last year we approached Newtel about the possibility of cell phone service on the southwest coast. They told us at that time that they reviewed their cell phone coverage on an annual basis, and that for the year 2000 there was no plans to do anything down here. So we followed up last month with another letter reminding them that we're still here, and that when they do their annual review of cell phone coverage in Newfoundland, we'd certainly like to have every consideration for that service. As everybody knows, the early part of this year they did upgrade the local service here in Burgeo, and everybody seems to be quite pleased, but there is still a high demand for cell phone service. We do have a lot of business people and other people come through this region, and one of the concerns we do find all the time is lack of cell phone coverage. So we're certainly going to try and push that issue during the course of the next year.
I'm sure many of our residents will be very happy to hear that. Yeah. Now, you also have here smoked fish information.
Yeah, at our the meeting before last, at our regular board meeting, one of the members opened up some dialogue and discussion in regards to the potential of looking at smoked fish as a small industry within the community. As everybody knows, there's a major resource of brown fish going up the road, so to speak, and to try and do something with it, not only in the primary processing, but obviously the jobs are created more extensively in the value-added and secondary processing sectors. So we're in the process now of trying to work with the Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture, trying to dig out various information on the smoked fish industry, and also, of course, trying to gather inventory of who and what in Newfoundland is presently involved in providing smoked fish to the retail market sector. We're hoping that in the next couple of months we'll make a determination whether or not it might be economically viable to look at moving this initiative forward. It's a nice change because I've been here about a year and a half, and actually it's one of the few things, new things, fresh things that have come to the table recently, and that's good to see that people are starting to think again about different opportunities and initiatives within the community. So it's certainly something we're gonna take a close look at in the next couple of months.
It's certainly an interesting way to go, smoked fish, because a lot of people do enjoy smoked fish, so it would be nice if something could come from our town. The sea urchins, how is that going?
We're to the point now where we're in the middle of some negotiations with a new buyer, if you want, for the raw resource. We've just completed the overall final report for the Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture in terms of the resource identification program. And as a matter of fact, this week, representatives of our board had the opportunity to meet with Liberal candidate, leadership candidate, Mr. Paul Dix here in Burgeo, and certainly one of the three major items or topics on our agenda is the sea urchin initiative. And of course we explained to Mr. Dix that you know, we have a resource here. It's a renewable, could be a renewable resource. It's a new resource in the island. The only thing really holding us back to creating probably upwards of 50 to 60, seasonal jobs in this community is actually a processing license. And we went over the gamut of, the new resource, the new identifiable resource, adjacency to Burgeo, underutilized species, market demand is supreme, market price is supreme. We're not taking nothing from anybody else, why not? And Mr. Dick certainly gave us every indication that once the leadership campaign is over, that on February 5th, and we've already got a pencil in, that we'll be contacting Mr. Dix to see if in fact what he might be able to do for our community here in acquiring a processing license. He did say categorically after we explained the whole situation that he couldn't see any reason why government would not, for this circumstances, provide a sea urchin only license for the community, and that's all we're asking for.
Yeah.
So hopefully we've got somebody else in our corner right now, and it's obviously, as I mentioned to the mayor and other people, the acquisition of that license is going to be on the political level, and that's where we're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So we're certainly trying to move ahead.
And at his meeting on Tuesday, the people that were there at the meeting brought up the same issue, and his opinion was favorable when he found out. He thought it was ridiculous that 30 jobs went over the Burgeo Road, or 30-plus jobs went over the Burgeo Road because of a simple thing as government policy holding them back. And he was favorable, and I'm sure the residents probably heard that.
Yeah, and that was really good because by the time we had our meeting after we had a public meeting, so it was really timely for us because when he walked in, at least he'd already had a good feel from the local residents. And I'm often said to people that in order to change government policy, it's not people like me. I can make recommendations, but it comes from within the residents and people in the communities that they scream and shout loud enough.
Yeah.
Government has to stand up and take notice and possibly change the policy. And I think he heard a good part of it the other day, and we were really pleased as a board.
It was very positive, actually, because one of the first questions was about the fish plant and core product and whatever. But right off the bat, sea urchins was the next one. Yeah. So the sea urchin project is priority in a lot of people's minds, so which is a good thing.
Yeah, and it's a very tangible item, so that's great.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And your tourism meeting, how did that go?
Yeah, as people in the community, have heard me a number of times, we've tried on several occasions to hold meetings to develop a local tourism committee. We've had some frustrations along the line, but I will say that in the middle parts of December, we brought together approximately 12 to 14 people, I think it was somewhere around there, for a meeting. And of course, at the end of the night, my philosophy was I don't want to talk about what can be done in tourism anymore. It's let's try and form a committee and get on with the business of trying to develop tourism in the community, or the alternative would be for the BDDB to go ahead and try to move tourism initiatives ahead, however small it might be, because as you know, we have a number of things on our plate, and there's only so much time and energy that can be put to any type of initiative or any type of sector in the community. And if you don't have subcommittees or committees that are strictly involved in certain sectors, it doesn't drive as fast. So I'm pleased to say that at the end of the night we had 5 individuals come forward, plus the representative. There will be a representative from Town Council. The mayor was there and certainly committed Town Council support for this, which is definitely needed if we're going to move ahead. And we're holding our first meeting sometime in the latter part of January, and that meeting will really be to identify certain initiatives and activities that this tourism committee should undertake within the next 12 months to move tourism ahead for Burgeo. The only way this thing is going to move is if everybody in the community at the end of the day gets involved in it. And it's a hard sell because tourism itself, and we discussed it at the meeting, is an intangible. It's not like if you put a fish plant there or you put a small industry there and people are walking in and there's 30 people going to work. Tourism is as simple as hosting an event one weekend and you fill the hotel and the restaurants, and by doing so somebody's employed for 2 or 3 days that weekend because they need extra staff to maintain the hotel rooms and work in the restaurants and those kinds of things. They don't see the direct sustainable employment, but there is a lot of employment generated. Tourism has been proven to bring in probably the newest dollars into any community because it's all fresh money. It hasn't been recycled previously, and it certainly does a major boost to anybody's economy. And not only does tourism do that in terms of revenue generation, but the intangibles of putting the community like Burgeo on the map. People realize it's there, and it's one of those situations where you draw more people to the community. And like I say to certain people, God knows what comes out of it. There could be an individual that walks in that has a business in downtown Toronto, somewhere wants to relocate, so impressed with the community of Burgeo. Hey, I think there's a great place maybe to do business. You don't know at the end of the day who you're going to run into or what you're going to run into and what doors you might open just by the tourism avenue. And of course, I've always said anyway, tourism in and of itself within this community is certainly an industry that's untapped and that we need to really move forward into the future with. And I'm really pleased, and so was our board, that we finally got a committee in place and that we can start the year 2001 off on a really good foot to move certain initiatives forward. So we're pleased on that.
You said you had 5 individuals now. Is that the number of people you were looking for, or were you hoping for more?
We never really came up with a set number of individuals that should be on this committee or shouldn't be on the committee. What we would like to see at the end of the day is certain sectors of the community involved. Like right now, I didn't name all of them. There's 1 or 2 individuals in the community that are into small business development. We have an individual that's an outfitter is on the committee. The town's committed themselves. There's going to be a representative from the museum committee, which is great. And so that's the 5. And of course, the BDDB will be there, and myself, I'll be there as the ex officio to assist the committee in terms of any type of assistance, liaison, or facilitation to move things forward for that committee, to assist them. And of course, there is a couple of other sectors in the community we would like to see there definitely in regards, and Sandusky is one of them.
Okay.
And it's a situation where, you know, nobody is there to try and control or take over anybody else's activities and what they do. But it's a situation where it's nice to have all these different groups and that around the table, so the left hand knows what the right hand's doing.
Yeah.
And a small example is that we had one outfitter come in, and he sat down, and all of a sudden we just had a general discussion about what amenities and what's being offered in the community. And somebody spoke up and said, well, you know, boy, we're not tapping into the winter tourism at all. One of our priorities should be to get some winter tourism activity here, you know, snowmobiling and that kind of stuff to bring tourists in. And of course the outfitter spoke up and said, hold on, I'm offering that. And nobody, including myself,
didn't know it.
So, I mean, if you've got this committee around the table, all of a sudden you discover the things that are being offered around the community and in the region that nobody's aware of.
Okay.
And all of a sudden you could be pushing into an area where there's no need because somebody else is already doing it. Also, if we're going out to various shows or events and we're trying to promote the region, then you've got a nucleus of people around the table who say, look, when you go to this show, we should be promoting this, 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 and this. And you're not leaving anybody, losing anybody in the cracks.
Oh, okay, marvelous.
And we're not working on things that are already out there. Let's work on things that are not there and complement one another. And that's the way
probably try to bring everybody together to work for the same end.
Yeah, we go to the whole, basically, at the end of the day.
Okay.
Sand and Sea Festival does a fantastic job in what they do. However, there's ways and means that this tourism committee through the BDDB might be able to assist and help the Sand and Sea in terms of promotion. I know that they do some of their own promotional stuff, but if you take everybody's, and I'll use this example, everybody's few dollars that they have for promotion, put it all together in a big pot, including some funds that we access in other places, all of a sudden now we've got a much larger pot of money that we can actually get a bigger bang for our buck for everybody.
Okay.
So that's that's some of just the initial approaches that can be had by people working together. And like I say, every group needs to do their own thing, but I think jointly there's a whole bunch of things that we can all do together to work towards one end. So we're looking forward to a very exciting time, I think, in the next year with tourism. We have some dedicated people there that I know will actually move things forward for us.
Okay. And on to our greenhouse project.
Yeah, it's shut down completely now. The company is in the process of winterizing the facility, taking out the plants and cleaning up and that kind of stuff. And actually right now as we speak, we're in the middle of developing the marketing strategies pretty well completed. We're in the middle of trying to get a business plan completed for year 1. We're very pleased how everything is transcended so far. More than positive in terms of the outlook for this company and what it could mean to not only the community but certainly to a new industry within the province. We have certain people excited, and again that was one of the things that was brought up by Mr. Dix in our meeting on Tuesday evening, because we're in the process now of trying to identify ways and means for expansion of the company into what we call a pre-commercial avenue. And what we're planning to do next year is actually have a 4 to 5 bay facility next year. The company will be involved in growing tomatoes again on a pre-commercial level, and that means that we're going to try what we anticipate scooping in the way of a market. We're going to try and get at least 50% of that next year. for tomato sales. They're also going to be involved in an R&D program, much like the tomato production was this year. However, we're going to look at English cucumbers in one of those bays, and then the growing and production of peppers in another facility. So basically, at the end of the day, we'd like to see 2 or 3 different crops within the company, and that just makes them diverse and the ability to have potential sales in a number of different areas. However, at the end of the day, it might not work out. They might wind up having a total greenhouse operation of tomatoes, or a combination of one, or a combination of all 3. But we need to do that R&D work on those other 2 crops, like we did on tomatoes this year. Number 1, to prove we can do it, and then number 2, to see if in fact there's a market there for it, and what the revenues could be very well projected from those types of products. So we're very excited. We're hoping that by the end of January this year that we'll start planting the existing greenhouse with an initial tomato crop, and that by February sometime we can actually possibly see the beginning construction of the pre-commercial facility. Could take a little bit longer, I don't know, but I know we are moving in the right direction. And again, you've heard me say it before, I mean, all the credit should go to the 3 gentlemen that have put in the time and effort and energy into this initiative right from the start. They've certainly proven themselves not only as growers, but as very dedicated entrepreneurs, and I think they're an example of people out there in the community, or lots of other places in this province, of what it actually takes. If anybody's thinking about getting into business, all they got to do is stand back and say, and have a look at what these gentlemen have done last year, to know that it's not just an 8 to 5 job Monday to Friday, and we can all walk out of it at the end of the day. They put in some long, hard hours at times, and it's certainly been to the benefit of the BDDB as well to have those individuals working with us, because without them we wouldn't have seen the fruits of the labor.
Fruits of the labor, yeah.
So we're really, as this year ends, we're really positive about a number of things that we've undertaken this year, and things that we can look forward to next year. And again, I will say to the public that if anybody has an idea or initiative that they want to undertake, whether it be small business development or something that could benefit the community or enhance the community as a whole, our door is always open, and we'll certainly, we don't turn down any ideas. We'll try to investigate and see what the potential might be and move forward from there.
Okay, was there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just like, on behalf of the board, wish the residents of this community a very merry and safe Christmas, and certainly a prosperous New Year. And to the BBS, yourself and Claude, thank you for the opportunity again throughout the course of this year to be able to come in here and discuss various issues and initiatives that the BDDB has undertaken, and I think is a very important role that you guys play, and the ability for us to be able to access the facilities here is certainly well worth our while coming over, and we appreciate the assistance from the BBS.
Well, I thank you very much for joining us.
Good night.
On Friday, the St. John Central High School students held their annual Christmas talent show. Here are some highlights.
Long lay the world in sin and never pining, till he appeared, and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Far
The talent show will be shown in its entirety at a later date. On Saturday, the volunteer fire department held breakfast with Santa Claus. Here are some highlights.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it shows. All of the other reindeers used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer game. When one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, "Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh? Then all the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee, "Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history." Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it shows. All of the other reindeers used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer game. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, "Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh?" Then how the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee, "Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history."
Day, and man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. Long time ago in Bethlehem, so lowly Bible say, Mary's boy child, Jesus Christ, was born on Christmas Day. Hark now, hear the angels sing, a king was born today. Man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. While shepherds watched their flocks by night, they saw a bright new shining star. They hear a choir sing the song, the music seemed to come from afar. Hark now, hear the angels sing, a king was born today. Man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. And then they found a little rook in the stable all forlorn. In a manger full in the dark, where a little boy was born. Hark now, hear the angels sing, a king was born today. Man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. Hark now, hear the angels sing, He was born today. Man will live forevermore because of Christmas Day. Because of Christmas Day.
The winner of the emergency kit and Santa figure were announced.
And the lucky number is 198.
Who is the victorious?
I take this on.
198.
Sincerely?
198. The mayor will hear it.
And the lucky winner is Liz Donald.
Stay with us for Off the Rat, the community events, and the BBS Playbill, all after this. We would like to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in over the past year, and we look forward to your continued viewing in 2000. We would also like to thank all our volunteers for their hard work and dedication during the past year.
Season's greetings to all of you from all of us at Burgeo Broadcasting System.
Off the rack. This week as we scanned our tape rack, we came across this tape of some students singing a Christmas song. We're not quite sure which grade it is. Let's look back to December 1988.
You a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings to you wherever you are. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings to you wherever you are. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
BBS Playbill. On Wednesday, we will have the A.J. Matthews Christmas Concert. Tune in on Thursday when we'll have the St. John's Central Iowa Talent Show. And I'll be here again next week at 7:30 p.m. with the first part of This Year in Review. For This Week in Review, I'm Marie Rose. Good night, and we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.